続いて本会合5
We would now like to start plenary number 5. How can business lead the transformation that the world needs? First, allow me to introduce the panelists. First, from WBCSD, President and CEO, Mr. Peter Becker, will be appearing in a video message. From Sompo Japan, Chairman and Representative Director Mr. Masaya Futamiya, and IGES President Dr. Kazuhiko Takeuchi. And the session is to be moderated by Dr. Shinji Onoda, Research Manager of IGES Sustainability Integration Center. Floor is yours, Dr. Onoda. Thank you very much. I'm privileged to serve as the moderator of this session. My name is Onoda. In this session, we will explore how can business lead the transformation that the world needs. And WBSD has released Time to Transform Vision 2050. We have been able to provide the Japanese translation of that report, and we will discuss the roles businesses can play in pushing the transformative change. We will first show the video message by Mr. Peter Becker, to be followed by the presentations by Mr. Futamiya, Chairman and the Representative Director of Sompo Japan, joined by Dr. Takeuchi. Sompo Japan, Toyota, and Fujitsu and IGES work together to release the translated version on October 26th. Without further ado, please start the video message.
Hello, I'm sorry that I cannot be with you today, but it's an honor to be here virtually. For those of you unfamiliar with the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, we are the premier global CEO-led community of the world's leading sustainable businesses working collectively to accelerate the systems transformation needed for a net zero, nature positive, and more equitable future. Our members come from all sectors and geographies, and we're proud that nearly 10% of the entire membership is made up from Japanese companies. I'm recording this message coming straight out of COP26, where I've been working with our members and other business leaders to demonstrate our commitment to driving action to reduce, remove, and report emissions, as well as highlighting the public-private collaboration that is required to drive climate action. One of the main things that we've been calling for is the development of a new global framework of corporate determined contributions, or CDCs, to capture business progress and delivery against targets, ambitions, and aims. The messages, commitments, and actions that WBCSD has come to COP26 with are drawn from our recent update to Vision 2050. I'm here today to talk about this update, which we have called Vision 2050 Time to Transform. It is WBCSD's strategic framework for action in line with the challenges we face as global societies. The Institute for Global Environmental Strategies has been our partner for many years, and with the support of Sompo, Toyota, and Fujitsu, has led the translation of Vision 2050 Time to Transform into Japanese. WBCSD decided to revisit its Vision 2050 and bring it up to date for the decade to come, in part because we thought that Vision 2050 could play an important role in helping companies to navigate this world. We see that sustainability is going mainstream. Shareholder ESG focus, regulations, changing risk profiles, and shifting consumer demand are all changing the way that companies think about and act on sustainability. But despite these changes, we're still failing to make significant progress against the three major challenges that we face as global societies: climate emergency, crisis of nature with sustained ecological degradation and biodiversity loss, and mounting inequality. To address these challenges, we need to transform everything. In 2019, WBCSD began to work to update Vision 2050. We worked with companies from all sectors and geographies, including 4 Japanese companies, Fujitsu, Motor Corporation, Sompo, and Toyota. The most important thing to understand is that for business, sustainability needs to be about running companies well into the future. It needs to be about taking steps to safeguard future business success. With that in mind, we focus this update not just on the transformations that we believe business can and needs to drive, but also on how transformations actually happen. There are 5 main components to Vision 2050's framework for business action, designed to help companies understand what it will take to prosper in the transition to an economy that is more sustainable, as well as how do they bring that transition about. I'm going to give you a really quick overview of the work and its 5 main areas, just enough to share with you what it is that we're all aiming for and where business needs to take action. Firstly, it is time for a shared vision. Our vision hasn't changed since 2010. It is that business works to create a world in which more than 9 billion people are able to live well within planetary boundaries by 2050. But in this update, we have drawn on the latest science and development thinking to define what living well within planetary boundary actually means. Second, it is time for action. At the heart of the update to Vision 2050 are 9 transformation pathways, representing the essential products and services that societies need, that business exists to provide. Although not exhaustive, they cover an extremely broad range of business activity and represent areas that the vast majority of industries should clearly be able to see themselves in. They are energy, transportation and mobility, living spaces, products and materials, financial products and services, connectivity, health and well-being, water and sanitation, and food. Each pathway includes a vision of the way that particular societal need will be met in 2050, as well as a comprehensive set of transitions we consider critical to achieving each vision, and a list of action areas for business to focus on over the next 10 years. We also tie these actions closely with the SDGs, underlying that there are no ways seeking to duplicate or replace the SDGs, but instead we're trying to make the SDGs more directly actionable for the business community. Thirdly, it is time for a mindset shift. In this part of the framework, we're talking about the mindsets that govern how business make decisions. Leaders everywhere to change their mindsets toward building long-term resilience, towards a regenerative approach to business, and ultimately toward reinventing capitalism. These mindset shifts are what will move companies to take action in support of the real transformation, to determine what they need to pursue the transitions in our pathways, to provide them with the reasons they need to mitigate transition risks, factor in transition costs, and safeguard their ability to generate long-term value and therefore future success. Fourthly, it is time to succeed. If the mindsets are about justifying action, then systems thinking is about turning action into transformational change. Business needs to be ambitious enough to lead, but also humble enough to know that it cannot drive these changes on its own. Transformation will require radical ambition, intent, and effort across business and governments, throughout economies and societies. It will require systems thinking. This also means understanding that there are enablers of change that are key to translating action into impact at societal scale. And finally, it is time for leadership. The reality is we have moved closer to critical planetary boundaries and the limits of social cohesion and stability. This is also a unique and generation-defining moment. This may be the best opportunity we have faced in the last 50 years to succeed in unlocking the necessary transformation of our systems, This moment will define us for generations to come. As I said earlier, we need to transform everything. Doing so will demand that we have a shared vision, that we use system thinking to design our transformation strategies, and that we shift our mindsets so that we can run our companies well into the future. So that's Vision 2050 in short. I invite you to consult the Japanese translation of the report for a deeper dive. Vision 2050's framework for actions align with efforts taking place in Japan, such as the push for sustainable transformation, SX, and the Kedanren New Growth Strategy. Japanese companies are already joining global efforts to establish sustainable capitalism through the evolution of corporate governance, for instance, its leadership on TCFD, and the integration of ESG into decision making. What is needed now is for companies all around the world to accelerate credible and coherent actions that contribute to a net zero, nature positive, and equitable world in which more than 9 billion people live well within planetary boundaries. Bringing about a net zero, nature positive, and equitable world will require systemic solutions and collaboration on a massive and global scale, unique so far in history. Such collaboration demands a shared view of the world that we need and want, of the challenges that we must address, and the things that will make it all possible. A realistic yet ambitious vision is essential to delivering transformative innovation and global process at the necessary rate and scale. Vision 2050 provides us with that. So thank you for your time. Thank you again to IGES for your leadership in translating Vision 2050 into Japanese. I wish you all the very best in your discussions. Please stay healthy, and I sincerely look forward to seeing you again in Japan very soon.
はい、ピーター・バッカー氏のですね、プレゼン
That was the presentation by Mr. Peter Becker. Now we will be joined by Mr. Futamiya of Sompo Japan and Professor Takeuchi. First, Mr. Futamiya, the contents of Vision 2050 and the messages of Mr. Becker. How do you receive those? Sompo Japan has joined Vision 2050 initiative, and if you have any thoughts on that, please share with that as well. Vision 2050 has been formulated based on the knowledge of WBCSD that has led the sustainability over a long period of time. Regional dialogue and external review input has been reflected in the report by the business sector. The fact that the report has been compiled by the business sector is quite significant. More than 9 billion people needs to live within the planetary boundary. The truly rich world that allows the 9 billion people to live is the clear message that is very well received across the world. Beyond planetary boundary, we human beings cannot survive. That is a truth. And we are also deteriorating the planet at an increasing speed. So we have to work towards the stoppage of the deterioration. And we have to fully grasp that need and to take concrete actions. And that is something that are immediately needed. In order, this report really tries to create a world where people can really lead an enriched life. That requires a major shift in the ways of life in each and every one of us. In the area of sustainability, we tend to pay much attention on climate change. But climate change and biodiversity are mutually interlinked. So these are the two major wheels of sustainability. Against this backdrop, we have to work towards closing the gap between the device and economic device as between people as well. Loss of nature and increasing inequality and environmental issues. These are major global challenges that we face today. The basic philosophy of SDG is to leave no one behind. The business sector is taking up the challenge in an integrated manner and in a very subjective manner, and that is what we need today. Mr. Backer also touched upon the importance of the initiative. Keidanren in November Keidanren has announced a new growth strategy, making a departure from the conventional strategy and making a directional change to achieve a sustainable growth. In the following month, determination by the economic sector and its actions have been communicated by Keidanren as well. Capitalism, future of capitalism cannot survive in the conventional path of growth. And through this message, they are trying to create a path that allows a sustainable growth. And closing the gap is also included in the agenda as well. We are resolved to follow that positive path as well. In this direction, we are perfectly aligned with the direction set forth by Vision 2050, working not only with the government, but also with NPO and the civil society. We have joined along with IGES, with Fujitsu, Toyota, and Sompo Japan, worked on the translation of the document. In discussing such a global agenda, we, on the part of the business sector, have to share with the world initiatives being driven in Japan, because that leads to the creation of opportunities to enhance their presence in the world. In that sense, we are committed to promoting that agenda going forward. Same question to President Takeuchi of IGES. Professor Takeuchi functioned as the external reviewer of the Vision 2050, and how do you evaluate this report and this initiative? Thank you. First, WBCSD and our collaboration has been quite significant on the part of IGES as well. Initially, not knowing how to approach to IGES, WBCSD first asked this question to Keidanren as to who they should be talking to. The reason they asked the question to Keidanren is the IGES's report on circular economy and climate change, or circular economy related papers, and biodiversity. So all these initiatives in this area and report written by IGES in these areas have been thoroughly reviewed by WBCSD in judging us as a viable partner for WBCSD, and that is why we are very honored that they picked us as our partner. And I also have been honored to serve as the external reviewer of Vision 2050. The process of external review is quite complicated. The final draft of Vision 2050 was, of course, reviewed, but not only that, as Mr. Backer touched upon, their background papers or issue briefs needed to be reviewed as well. I first had to go through all the issue briefs before reviewing the Vision 2050, that is an overarching document that brings together all the issue briefs. I have sat on a number of panels and councils in Japan, and I have also served as reviewers for many research projects, but it is usually a one-off review of one document. So in this regard, WBSD Vision 2050 review process was quite new to me, and in that sense, I have to keep learning such processes. the Vision 2050 Time to Transform translated version in Japanese, which is being launched today. So I recommend that you not only read this document, but also to take account of the issue brief, say, for example, the macro trend or innovations or renewal or updating of financial themes. All these thematic discussion needs to be reviewed as well.
And I think these are worth knowing. So I do hope that regarding these points, I would like to have you not read only this document, but if you have time, please take a look at the issue brief as well. And also, Vision 2050. Personally, what surprised me the most is the planetary boundaries are included here. And earlier on, as I explained, so there's the CES, and when we did that, I was the chair of the Central Council, and the regional CES and SDGs, linking them. We needed a concept that linked it, and planetary boundaries. We thought maybe this should be included, and we were the ones who proposed this. And there was a lot of opposition, especially from the companies. So this is not from the UN, this is from an ordinary researcher, a proposal from an ordinary researcher alone, being included in a basic environmental plan issued by the government. That's a bit iffy. But as a result of repeated discussions, the expression planetary boundaries would be included in the environmental basic plan, so it's in there. And after that, the Keidanren and Japanese companies, they became more positive. And this now enjoys a good reputation. So in a very short time, there was a change in the awareness. In that respect, planetary boundaries. In Vision 2050, this has been included, and the significance of this is quite great. And today, it just so happens that the person who proposed this, so this is a group of researchers. It's actually not just one researcher who proposed this, and mainly in Europe, many academics across different disciplines, say biodiversity and climate change, and agricultural chemicals being used, or water use. So from all these different aspects, these were all brought together under the concept of planetary boundaries. So this is not the achievement of one individual, this is the achievement of a group. But this kind of thing, it's globally being spread by Mr. Johan Rockshaw. And he is very internationally famous. And I've heard that with WBCSD and Johan, there are very deep ties. And that's how they decided on the final decision to include this. And to give you the most recent information, right now, at COP26, 1.5 degrees, that target has become a global standard. So Johan has started to emphasize 1.5 degrees is the planetary boundary in climate change. So, this being the case, there's the global target, which is an international target, and then there are the researchers, academic backing of this, and then to put this into practice, companies and various other stakeholders and their role. So in the planetary boundary discussion, this is an extension of this. And this has become planetary change. And is it going to go well or not? It's this decisive decade that's going to decide whether this goes forward well or not. That's all. Thank you. Yes, thank you. And we are starting to run out of time, so let's move on to the next question. Vision 2050 is going to become more widely known in Japan. And including, based on the contents of Vision 2050, when companies try to bring about major change, what do you think is important? And the government and other stakeholders, what role do you expect of them? And Mr. Futamiya, could you please give us your answer? And Sompo Japan's activities and policies, and Kei Danren's corporate action and SDG chairperson, from that perspective too, could you give us your answer? As Mr. Baka mentioned, it's now a time of change, and systems need to be rebuilt, and true value needs to be created. And regarding this, yes, I agree. And companies, as a social existence, they create economic value, and SDGs, ESGs, tackling these, they try to resolve social issues. They try to contribute as they grow. That's what they need to do. And in the end, capitalism to be reborn, all over the world, leaders need to change their mindset. And the world, the impact on the earth and on people, is going to be part of deciding whether a company succeeds or not. And a long-term perspective is needed. And the capitalism models that we are accustomed to, this should not be abusing people. So what Mr. Baka said, yes, I agree with everything he said. And so far, regarding growth indices, we only looked at GDP. But there's natural capital and well-being. So we need holistic wealth that we need to think about. And when we discuss new capitalism, this perspective is needed. And at Kei Danren, new sustainable capitalism, we want to go after this under a growth strategy, and we want to bring about Society 5.0. And as you all know, together with the government, this is a national strategy, and our country needs to aim for the future society. The state-of-the-art technology and diverse people's imagination and creativity, these will be fused together to solve social issues and create value. And from there, the society that's born, anyone, anywhere, at any time, can feel free and free of worry and live a good life. This is going to be a people-centric society. So this is human security being protected with SDGs. This is the same time, and as Kei Danren, Society 5.0, by bringing this into reality, we want to attain SDGs. So this is Society 5.0 for SDGs with carbon neutral. So this is one of our most important strategies. And Vision 2050 shows us the three issues. And matching this, I'd like to briefly explain what Kei Danren is doing. Regarding climate change, more than 190 companies have been trying to tackle innovation, challenge zero declaration, and technological development and implementation, working together with the government. These companies are moving forward. On November the 8th, carbon neutral action plans have been set up to make things even more specific. And the Kei Danren has a nature conservation committee. And in the Japanese economic world, this shows you the good practices. And there is an initiative that we came up with in 2020. And with the Environmental Ministry, Biodiversity, Business Contribution Projects, the Japanese business world has post-2020 biodiversity framework targets. And to contribute to these targets, there's technologies, products, and services that have been selected. And they are listed on the Ministry of Environment's website. And in the future, CBD COP20, COP26, COP15, we are going to disseminate information regarding these. Regarding human rights, the Kei Danren has a guide for human rights charter. And the human rights due diligence regarding specifically how to put this into practice. We have a lot of case studies and examples. We are now creating a handbook for this business and human rights. So this is not an issue just for big companies, but most Japanese companies are small and medium-sized enterprises. They also need to tackle this. So this handbook, we hope this will be utilized. starting with the government, a variety of stakeholders. Regarding the Japanese version, we'd like them to utilize this so that the intent of Vision 2050 can be understood. So under a common vision, each of us can take the leadership and take action. In particular, as the government, a clear index, clear indices will be set so that we can monitor the progress and the efforts by each entity to make these move forward. This is essential. And utilizing this report, I hope that the whole of Japan and the whole world SDGs achievements can be attained and we can move forward steadily. We have great expectations this will happen. That's all. Thank you. Yes, thank you very much. And lastly, from Mr. Takeuchi, same question. And overall, could you please give us a summary? Yes, thank you. As Mr. Futamiya just mentioned, the holistic wealth or inclusive wealth, that was the expression. And the person who declared this is Cambridge University's Mr. Parsa Dasgupta. And this is someone that I'm on very good terms with. And he recently compiled an extremely big achievement. With climate change, as you know, there's the Stan report, Nicholas Stan. This is very famous. But recently, the biodiversity version, Dasgupta report, has been issued. And this is now being talked about a lot. And his fundamental way of thinking is, like you said, measuring with GDP. Is that really the right way to measure this? And in the region, the natural resources, this kind of thing. So properly using this, that's the kind of society we need to have. So, starting with the companies, a variety of stakeholders regarding this need to be more aware.
That is his claim. And I'm not sure the Japanese version is available, but I hope that you will refer to that. The Skipta report is something that we should watch. So that is the first point. And secondly, IGES has conducted various activities, and as an extension of these activities, WBCSD's discussion is positioned. More specifically, IGES published 1.5 degree lifestyle report. In order to achieve 1.5 degree temperature rise, what kind of lifestyle needs to be established? And that includes food issue as well. For example, the Japanese diet actually is closely connected with the carbon emission, but the Japanese diet is actually doing pretty well. And how about net zero? Can we really imagine net zero? From that perspective, we are raising these point of discussions, and this report has been downloaded many times. So if you have not read the report, please find that report. So as we work on these activities, the initiative together with WBCSD has been a great inspiration for us. As I said, the planetary boundary, the large corporations and many corporations are taking up that issue of planetary boundary in the report. That is a very important point, and we hope that this momentum will continue. And I made various suggestions. There are global and local issues, and they have to be connected more. And since there are large corporations, in order to achieve sustainability, we cannot ignore the power of small and medium enterprises. These were the suggestions made by myself. But unfortunately, in-depth discussion on these points was not carried out. So in the next occasion, I will continue to make suggestions on these points. As for research, the basic science and humanities, for basic science, the Nobel laureates are always saying this, but humanities are also very important as well. In Japan, humanities were not considered a science in the Science and Technology Basic Plan. But then we have Innovation Basic Act, and the basic plan was approved in April by Cabinet this year. And they are now saying that humanities are important. Humanities were outside of science, but now humanities are considered important because using integrated wisdom, we will have to solve these global challenges. That is the reason. So in the doctoral course, there are fewer students. That is becoming a large issue. So the corporations and universities will have to cooperate and offer and provide opportunities to young students. Keidanren and the member companies of Keidanren are asked to cooperate in this regard. Because I am a former professor of University of Tokyo, so that's why I'm asking you to do that, and that concludes my remark. Thank you very much. The time was quite limited, but we were able to have a very productive discussion.